Lesson 3. The vocabulary of everyday life. Mr. Priestley, you all need the words and phrases we use to describe our daily actions, so suppose I tell you the things that I do, more or less, every day. By the way, which tense ought I to use for that, Olaf? Olaf, I think you ought to use the simple present tense. Mr. Priestley. Why, Olaf? Because that is the tense generally used for actions that are habitual or repeated. Mr. Priestley. Very good, Olaf. Now I'll begin. I wake at about 7 o'clock and then it is time for me to get up. I like a cold bath every morning, so I put on my dressing gown and slippers and go to the bathroom. The water feels very cold on winter mornings, but I rub myself hard with the towel and soon I feel quite warm. Mr. Priestley in dressing gown and slippers. Then I shave, brush my teeth and wash my face and go back to the bedroom to dress. I brush and comb my hair. Take a clean handkerchief out of the drawer and go downstairs for breakfast at 8:15. After breakfast I sit and read my morning paper and smoke a cigarette. Or in the summer I have a walk round my garden. I go into my study at 9 o'clock and meet my students there, and the day's work begins. At 12:30 I have a break for lunch. I usually have this at home, but sometimes I go out for lunch and have a chat with my friends before beginning work again at 2 o'clock. I generally finish my work by about 5 o'clock. Then I have a cup of tea and a biscuit, and in summer I spend an hour or so in the garden and play a few games of tennis, or I go to the golf club and have a round of golf. We have dinner about 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and then we sit and talk, listen to the wireless or look at television, or Mrs. Priestley plays the piano. Sometimes, in the summer, we take out the car and go for a drive in the country. In the winter we go to the cinema or the theater. But that is not often. I have a lot of work to do. And usually after dinner or supper I go to my study and read or write until 12 or 1 o'clock. That's my day. Now, here is Mrs. Priestley to describe a woman's day. Mrs. Priestley. I, too, get up soon after 7 and go downstairs to help Susan with the work. She cleans out the stove and fills it up with Coke, so that we get plenty of hot water all day. Then she takes out the ashes from the sitting room fire and relays it with paper and sticks and coal. Then it is all ready to light, and only needs a match put to it. While she is doing that, I get the breakfast ready. I put the tablecloth on the dining room table and put out the knives, forks and spoons, and the cups, saucers and plates. Then I go and cook the breakfast. I soon have the bacon and the eggs cooking in the frying pan. I make toast, boil the kettle for tea or coffee, and we are ready to sit down at 8:15. After breakfast, Susan and I clear away the dishes. Then she washes and dries them, and I go to do my shopping. Sometimes I go to the shops, to the butcher's to order the meat, to the grocer's to buy tea, coffee, sugar, etc., but often I ring 'em up and order what I want by phone. Then Susan and I go upstairs to make the beds, dust upstairs and downstairs, and do the carpets with my electric cleaner. It is about 11 o'clock by this time, so I change my clothes and begin to get ready for lunch. After lunch I do some sewing or go for a walk and visit my friends. Then, Mr. Priestley joins me for afternoon tea in the sitting room, usually bringing 1 or 2 of his students with him. We have bread and butter, cut thin, jam or honey, cakes and biscuits. My husband has already told you how we spend our evenings. In summer, tennis, golf or a drive in the car. In winter, music, the cinema, a concert, sometimes dinner in town and a theater afterwards. Sometimes, in fact very often, we just have a quiet evening at home. You see, John is at the university and Margaret is now at a boarding school and comes home only at the weekends, so except when they are on holiday, there are only the two of us at home. On these quiet evenings we have a very simple supper round the fire in the sitting room. And when that is over, my husband sometimes works in his study at a book that he is writing, but quite often he says that he has done enough work for the day. And then he sits in his armchair at one side of the fire with his pipe and, for a change, a detective story. I sit on the other side with my book or my sewing, and Sally, our cat, lies on the carpet before the fire or jumps up on my husband's knees. He is certainly Sally's best friend, and wherever he is, in the house or in the garden, there you will find Sally, too. And when the wind is blowing through the trees outside and the rain is beating on the windows, our warm fire seems warmer and more cheerful than ever, and I often think that these quiet evenings are the best evenings of all. Pronunciation drill. Belong, decorate, grand, brush, game, blow, familiar, detective, marry, honey, decorate, coal, detective, kettle, ashes, cousin, break, coke, electric, plenty, handkerchief, club, lay, comb, biscuit, guest, jam, rub, grocer. Exercises. Exercise 1. Use the following words in sentences: slippers, ashes, butcher, towel, toast, detective, comb, kettle, knee, rub, honey, blow, stove, dishes, beat. Exercise 2. Put in the words omitted in the following. The sentences are all in the piece you have just read. 1. At about 7 o'clock and it is time for me to. 2. I put on my and go to the bathroom. 3. I rub myself hard with the. 4. I brush my hair and take a clean out of the. 5. At 12:30 I have a for lunch. 6. In summer I an hour or so in the garden. 7. A few of tennis or go to the golf club and have a of golf. 8. Sometimes in summer we take out the car and go for a in the country. 9. Usually after dinner or I go to my study. 10. Susan cleans out the and fills it up with. 11. She takes out the from the sitting room fire and it with paper and coal. 12. Soon I have the and cooking in the frying pan. 13. I make toast and the kettle for tea or coffee. 14. After breakfast, Susan and I the dishes and she washes and them. 15. For tea we have bread and butter, thin. 16. John is at the and Margaret is now at a. 17. He says he has done work for the day. 18. Sally, on the carpet before the fire or up on my husband's. 19. He is Sally's best friend, and he is you will find Sally. 20. When the wind is through the trees and the rain is on the windows, our warm fire seems warmer than ever. Exercise 3. Join the following sentences by using when, it, as, or because. You may be able to do it in more than one way. 1. I knocked at the door. Susan opened it. 2. Mr. Priestley saw me. He came forward to meet me. 3. We sat near the fire. The evening was cold. 4. I was rather tired. I went to bed early. 5. You are not warm enough. Put on the eiderdown. 6. You can wash in your room. There is running water there. 7. There are only the two of us. We have supper round the fire. 8. The supper is over. My husband goes to the study to work. 9. The wind is blowing through the trees outside. The fire seems very warm and comfortable. 10. Sally is always with Mr. Priestley. He is her best friend. Composition exercises 1. Write about a Mr. Priestley's day. B. Mrs. Priestley's day. Use the third person. 2. Write about your own day. 3. Describe fully the picture on page 22. 4. The pictures on page 26 tell the story of one of Hobbes' mornings. When you have studied the pictures, tell the story. New words which you will need are alarm clock and dream, dreaming, dreamed, dreamed. Dictation. Hobbes' day. Hobbes wakes at 8 o'clock in the morning, and gets up at 8:30. He does not have a cold bath, he just washes his hands and face and brushes his teeth, if he remembers. Then he goes downstairs for breakfast. He eats lots of eggs and bacon and toast, and he drinks 3 or 4 cups of coffee. When he has finished breakfast, the day's work begins. He walks round to Mr. Priestley's house. He is often late. He shows Mr. Priestley his homework, if he has done any, and it is usually full of mistakes. He is glad when it is time for lunch. For lunch, Hobbes usually has roast beef and vegetables, and after lunch he always has a cup of tea with lots of sugar in it. Sometimes he sits in an armchair and reads the newspaper or a detective story. And sometimes, but not often, he does his work for Mr. Priestley. In the evening, after a tea of bread, butter, honey and cakes, Hobbes likes to watch television in front of a fire at Mr. Priestley's, or to visit other friends and tell them his funny stories. Dear friends, thank you very much for your support, for watching and for liking. I wish you success in learning English. Subscribe to our channel, and good luck.